She was 17 and riding with her best friend down a dark road with a creepy old house nearby. The road was known for being a death trap with multiple fatal accidents over the years. Suddenly, she felt something attach itself to her. I'm Beth Ann Campbell, and this is Something Weird Happened Here. Welcome to Something Weird Happened Here, the podcast for people who love a twisted tale but aren't afraid to poke at it a bit. We share stories that are postmarked peculiar and then explore the story with curiosity and an open mind. Stay tuned after the show to find out how to submit your strange saga, and maybe we or you will share it on air. Now let's get started, because no matter where you are in this mysterious world, something weird happened here. This tale is postmarked Nevada, USA. Subject line, spirit attachment, haunted museums, and skeleton hands. I know Heather from the business side of life, and I had no idea that A, she's had so many paranormal experiences with ghosts and spirits, and B, she's got some abilities, like the psychic sensitive kind. This is part one of our conversation. Heather, welcome to Something Weird Happened Here. I'm so excited to have you on my other podcast. I've had you
I
on
know.
The Thirsty Professional twice and soon to be more. But I started this podcast just a few months ago, and it's an interesting evolution as to where it's going, and I like it. And I'm excited to have you here today because you're just awesome. You're an awesome guest, no matter what you're talking about.
Thanks. Well, I have five stories for you to choose from
What?
when something weird happened. Yeah. Or you can
Wow.
just say pick one and then I'll just pick one.
Well, you know what? Let's kick right off. Tell me your first something weird happened here story.
So my first something weird happened here story, I was probably about 17 or 18 years old. There was this road near where I lived. There was this really creepy house at the end of the road. And it was just one of those, the road came stopped. And that but it wasn't like a blind end, right? But it was just one of those places where for no explainable reason, there had been multiple fatality accidents. Like people just didn't stop at the
Great.
stop sign, just
Great.
kept going right into the tree, and the house was so super creepy.
Lots of good
And
energy
so,
there.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, like it was just one of those places. Every time I drove by, I would just go like, "Ooh." And we drove by one night, and I just felt something attach itself to me, which sounds crazy, but for real.
What did it
And
feel like? Can I ask you what did
yeah,
it feel like?
it just felt like I had just like I was just like, ugh, like, ugh, I don't like it. I don't
Like
like this
icky?
feeling. Like
Were
very
you
icky.
driving or are
I was
you
not driving.
okay,
Thank
okay.
God. I was not driving. We were headed back to, I was with I don't even remember who was in the car, but my best friend was driving and we were headed back to her house. I think we were doing a sleepover or something. And as we were driving, like this dog ran out into the road and we hit it. And I felt the thing leave and I heard it laugh. And I was like, and so that's what I know that that house is like possessed and that's why people wreck there because whatever's in that house is so evil.
So do you think that it could be the house or just the general area? Could the house be evil because the area, and I've had so many conversations with guests about areas of the world that just seem to have good or bad, some concentration of energy, call it paranormal, whatever you want, but just some energy, ley lines, parallel universe, portals, whatever. And I just wonder if or is your instinct that it's the house itself?
I think whatever lives there has attached itself to that house. And I think that whatever it is probably belonged to that house belonged to it at some point in time. Or for
Yeah.
whatever reason it's attached itself to it because I've also had a spirit attach itself to me and move with me. So, um,
Oh my God, we'll
yeah.
get to that one. So you have this thing attach itself to you, then you have
Mhm.
this accident.
Yep.
Why do you think that it left you when you think that was its goal?
That its goal was to do some sort of harm to something. Yeah. Yeah. And at the
That
time
is,
I just thought I was crazy. Like I thought I was just but as I've gotten older and I've had other experiences, I'm like, oh no, this was really an evil spirit and entity that saw an opportunity because I am very open and I'm very receptive and I
wow.
sense those things. And so I was easy for it to attach itself to. and go somewhere else and do besides just kill people at the end of that road.
I had my friend Evie on for a couple of episodes, and she has some known lifelong abilities to sense things, and she calls it the path of least resistance. That if you are a sensitive person, meaning sensitive to those things that we cannot see or sense with our normal senses, intuitive, psychic, clairvoyant, clairsentient, whatever, that things, embodied spirits, things, perhaps entities from other dimensions, even maybe aliens, who knows, will find the path of least resistance. Because you have maybe this sensitivity, do you ever do things to, like, protect yourself so that you're not, it doesn't happen
Um,
again? Or apparently it did happen again, so
it did happen again. Well, it tried to. No, I don't. I mean, maybe I should. I've always, because so the Haunted Museum is here in Las Vegas, Zach's Haunted Museum, which has a
yeah.
lot of, which that's one of my experiences. I've never been because I'm so afraid that something in that, like I'm like
Yeah.
so afraid that something in that place because he has some really evil stuff in there.
Yeah, and spirit and things can attach themselves. My last guest, Tanya, was talking about how she doesn't thrift, she doesn't antique shop because she doesn't know what's going to come home with her. I do it all the time because I am not a receptive person. I think they're like looking, and they're like, if the spirits are looking for path of least resistance, they don't even notice Beth Ann Campbell. They're just like, what? Yeah, I'm a fly. Get out of my way. Let me go find somebody who's going to actually see me or sense me. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
have a friend that won't go. I love to go to antique stores and thrifting and all of that. And it had never occurred to me that something could be attached to something like, so now I'm more, she was like, you have to take cellulite with you. And I was like, oh, I got that, honey. I got that. And I said, I got plenty of cellulite. She was like, not cellulite, cellulose. And I was like, so it's like, I don't know, it's a crystal.
yeah,
And so I need to go get some, but I have not done that. So I probably should just because I am aware that things do. But probably 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago, I decided to walk by the haunted museum just to see what it was like because I am fascinated by this kind of thing and I really want to go because he's got some pretty cool stuff in there. But I hear stories, right? And I'm like, I want to go check this out. But I'm so afraid that something will attach itself to me. And so I'm like, okay, let me just walk by it. And as I walked by, like I got nauseous, like so nauseous. And like I felt like there was this pressure, so something was sitting on my chest, and I got this intense headache. And like to the point that there was some guy putting something in his car, and he was like, "Are you okay?"
wow,
Like you could see that there was something physically. And so once I got out of the house, past the house, it went away. But then I had to walk back to go back by my car, back to my car. I was like, oh my gosh. And so, because otherwise it was like walk way around,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I was gonna have
yeah.
to do a whole thing. And so as I walked back by, same thing happened. And as I was leaving out of the space at the area, something was watching me. I could feel it watching me, and it was like, "Don't ever come back here. Like we know who you are." I was like, "Okay, not coming back, not coming back, never coming here again." I'm like, but
Yeah,
it was so intense. Like could not breathe. Like just, and then it was just gone, just like that. Like it was this
so weird.
serious energy.
I was almost going to say, you could probably go and then prepare yourself, and then afterward, because when I used to ghost hunt, after each hunt, we would sage smudge ourselves to make sure that nothing came home with us, right?
Yep.
But I don't think that, I think you're beyond that at this point.
I
If
mean, I need to
someone's,
take my cellulite, my cellulose, some sage, across, some holy water.
yeah,
Like I'm gonna have to go in
yeah,
there.
yeah, some
Like, yeah.
garlic, yeah. I didn't know this about you. Have you always had these sort of sensitive abilities, or when did you first? I know you don't even advertise yourself as, this type of a person, but I'm just curious if you have had this for a while, and if you have any early memories of maybe being a little sensitive or intuitive.
I probably always have been, but it's not necessarily something that, was encouraged. I'm like, probably if it had been encouraged, if I had dived into these skills, I probably could be a medium or clairaudient or one of those things, probably.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not something I've ever dived into, but I do remember. as a child, my mom told me that I had said one day, so like, when the sun in the morning when it's rising or setting and you see the lights coming out from the sun right through the clouds or whatever in the
Sure. Yeah.
sky. Um, and I told her there were angels in them. And so I'm almost certain that I could see the angels in them. And so anytime I see them now, I'm like, oh, angels are coming up or down, they're doing their thing. Um, but it just wasn't something that was encouraged, explored, talked
Yeah.
about, like,
Yeah.
'cause you'd be like, you're just I have a very active imagination anyway,
Yeah.
as you know from the story I'm planning to write and all the things. And so it becomes, is it my imagination? Is it real? And when you're little, you don't know, And so those things I really think have to be developed when
Yeah.
you're open to that. And if they're not developed, then you're just kind of stuck
100%.
in this in between of, yes, I know things could attach itself to me. And yes, I've had some very interesting experiences with that. But
I'll ask you this because you've been very open about your faith in
mhm.
God and that and so with some of the things that you've experienced, have you had any conflict in trying to reconcile how does this fit in with my faith or does it just sort of naturally fit in or is anybody, ever questioned it or have you questioned it based on something anybody said or
No, I've never really questioned it. I mean, well, I have a very different relationship with God and my faith and all that. I am very, very deep in my faith, but I also, because of that, I also understand that it's not just good and right, there's evil. Because we have God, we also have evil. That's part of the deal. That's why the world is so broken. Because, I mean, even the Bible says that. Like, Satan goes to the guys, like, I've been walking around down there. Like, I don't like this dude Job, right? Right? So he attacks Job. And so I fully believe that these things, and a lot of times they're not necessarily evil entities. Now, the one that caused us to hit the dog was some sort of evil spirit. But like I've had an experience in Charleston, South Carolina, where a ghost is it's one of the most haunted places, one of the most well-known haunted places in Charleston. It's a restaurant. And the ghost literally held me in the bathroom. Like she wouldn't let me out. But her deal, yeah, it's crazy. I thought I was like having a whole meltdown.
were
But
you see were you tell me some detail. Were you seeing somebody or just sensing or in
no. So this is an old house. It's now called Pugin's Porch. It's a restaurant now. And it used to be owned by two sisters. It has a very long history of incidences that have occurred with this particular. So she has been seen by people, like there's been multiple unexplainable fires in the restaurant.
wow.
And there's multiple stories of workers that have come in after hours to do work in the kitchen or whatever that have left run screaming from the place and refused to go back in. And so this was, my God, I was probably 28, 29. We're in Charleston for the weekend, and so we decided to go to Pugin's Porch because they had Clemson blue cheese. And so it's a long story. And so we
Sold.
won't go down that rabbit hole. So anyway, so we went there and I went to the bathroom. And so it's an old house. So the bathroom was a tiny little bathroom, right? And they had a stall, but it was really a one-person bathroom. You just didn't lock the door because there was also a sink if somebody needed to come in and wash their hands. So when I went in and the door shut behind me and it made this weird click. And I was like, oh, I must just not have shut it all the way, right? I couldn't think too much about it. Do my thing, wash my hands. I get ready to leave and I go to open the door and it won't open.
Oh my
Not only
God.
will it not open, so I'm like, oh, okay, because I'm very claustrophobic. And so immediately, the minute I think I can't get out of somewhere, immediately the walls start closing in.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I must just be stupid. I can't open the door, right?
We've
Of
all
course,
been
the door's
there.
gonna open,
Heather, we've all
right?
been there.
Yeah, like it's a pull and I'm trying to push, or it's a push and I'm trying to pull, right? And so I go back to open the door and I could literally feel someone pulling it the other side. And I was like, well, somebody must be trying to get into the
Yeah.
bathroom, right? And so I just stepped back and I was like, let me just let them in. And nothing happened. And so I was like, what the heck? Are they coming in or not? So I go back. And again, I could feel something pulling it on the other side. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I gotta get out of this bathroom.
It's like embarrassing. Forget the ghost part of it. It's like I'm gonna have to call 911 to get me out of the freaking
What am
bathroom.
I, how am I gonna get out of this bathroom? And so I was like, I gotta get out of this bathroom. And so I go to open it again. And this time again, I feel something pulling it, but now I'm like really pulling back. And then they just let go, and the door like slams open. And then this blast of ice cold air
Ooh.
hits me. And like she was very clear to get the F out of her house. Get out. So I went back to the table. I told my husband, we gotta go. We gotta go right now. We have to leave. And he was like, I'm waiting for her to bring my card back because he was paying the bill. And I was like, no, we gotta go. We gotta go right now. She doesn't want us here. She doesn't want people in her house. She doesn't understand why we're here. We've got to go right now. He's like, I gotta get my car.
Yeah,
Right?
it's kind of
And
important.
so like she seriously doesn't understand that she's dead and that she doesn't know why people are in her house. She didn't invite us and she doesn't want us there.
Wow.
And yeah, it was one of the most bizarre experiences I've ever had.
You know, it's really interesting that because you said a couple things, and this is one of the revelations that I've had as I've been in the short time I've been doing this podcast, and I've talked to, you're probably the sixth or seventh, maybe eighth person I've talked to who has talked about having some sort of sensitive abilities. And I think a lot of people who are very anti, I'll say woo, just as a general encompassing
Yep.
of unconventional stuff, are, really think that it's just your whack jobs, you're just crazy and whatever. But every single one of you has talked about you don't just automatically assume something. You're trying to figure out what is this really? There's got to be somebody on the other side of the door. The door's stuck. I'm pushing instead of pulling. There's always a logical like exhaustion of reasons for things before you get to the point of okay, maybe this is not logical or by normal convention. So, it's just an observation of mine that I just find it fascinating that there's so much logical thought before you get to the woo that it actually kind of, surprised me. I probably had some preconceived notions myself. So, yay
Yeah,
for you.
I think there's
S-
just a lot we don't understand. And I think that
yeah,
for us,
yeah,
I think for some people that are so against woo, it's because they need everything to fit into a box, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I'm just more open than that. Like there's just a lot of things we just don't understand. And I
yeah,
don't understand how, but I have had enough experiences to know that there's more to it than just
yeah.
what fits in a box.
Well, and when you were talking earlier about, your faith and that there is evil, but also even in some times, maybe even current times, something doesn't even have to be evil if it's not understood. I mean, how many people were persecuted for witchcraft because they were herb dealers, right? Or just doing, right? So it's not even, doesn't even have to be evil. So I could see where there's a lot of history behind people having abilities like that. If you were sensitive, if you were picking up on stuff, you were called a witch or you were ostracized at the very least. So it's just it's interesting how this kind of still kind of comes full circle and how you navigate that as a person of a very deep faith.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably would have been drowned in Salem if I had lived there during that time frame, right? But, and I think that like not all spirits are evil. Some are just like this poor woman that doesn't understand that she's dead and
Yeah.
people are just coming into her house every single day by the hundred, right? Like
Yeah.
she's up, she doesn't understand. I think sometimes that literally they just get trapped here for whatever reason. There's
Yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
unfinished. They died unexpectedly or they're just attached to whatever it is that they're stuck in. And I had one that when I left my husband, I moved in with my parents for about 6 months, and they have been having some weird things go on. And my grandmother had visited one time, and she had heard what she thought was my parents arguing. And asked my mom about it the next day. My mom was like, no." We were both sound asleep. We weren't arguing. I don't know what you're talking about. And then she heard it several times. And then my dad saw a woman. And yeah. And so they had built this house from the ground up. So it wasn't like it was somebody from before, but there
Yeah.
must have been something that had happened on that property many years ago because she was dressed very old fashioned when my dad saw her. And this was when he was starting to get sick, although we didn't know it at the time. So he was probably much more open
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
seeing things, right?
Yeah.
And
Closer to the
so
veil.
right, right.
Yeah.
And so when I moved in, I never heard anything. I never saw anything. But when I moved out, I started hearing what I thought was my neighbors having knockdown dragouts at night, like in the middle of the
At a
night.
different place.
And yeah, in my new place that I had bought. And so I was telling mom about it, and I was like, because I had come from an abusive relationship, like I was very concerned for her, but also you've got to be very careful about putting your nose in somebody else's business and
Yeah.
getting into the middle of all that.
Your own
And you don't want
safety.
to just,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And so I was talking to my mom about like what to do, and I was like, because this was starting to happen more frequently, and I was like, I think the next time I'm just going to go over there and just knock on the door. I said, because enough is enough.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens. Because I have put myself in between people before.
Yeah.
And and I said, because I don't want to just call the police because that creates a whole nother, like that could just, but if I just go over and I can be like, hey, you're being really loud. Could you hold it down or whatever?
Yeah.
And so my mom was like, are you sure it's them? Because I don't hear them any other time. The only time I would ever hear them was when they were not their kids. I would never hear them. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure who else could it be? And she was like, well, our ghost that we haven't heard her in a while.
Ooh.
And she was like, and what you're describing is exactly what your grandmother heard, is exactly what I've heard. And she said, maybe she attached, she went with you because she recognized something in you, right? Saw that same similar damage that had been done, la, la, la. And so I said, what in the world? And so the next time I heard it, I said, ma'am, you're safe. He can't hurt you anymore. You're safe here. Nothing bad is going to happen.
It's making me
It's
cry a little
okay.
bit.
Never heard her, never heard them fight again, never heard she was gone.
I'm goosebumping all over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, she had recognized, identified, and attached and moved with me. And then now she's safe, hopefully resting in peace
She needed
finally.
something and you were the person to give it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really profound. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
I had no idea that you had so many. Honestly, Heather, sometimes people will go, I've had a lot of people like they will I'll be in a networking call and I'll say, "Yeah, I have this podcast." And they'll go, "Oh, I got this great story." And I'm like, "Okay, here's my website. There's a form. If you're interested, fill it out." And they go, "Yes, here's my story." And it's kind of like, mm, it just kind of sounds like a dream. They even say it's a dream. I have this, a lot of people have like weird dreams. I'm like, that's cool. Maybe it's, but but I'm usually skeptical. And then you come on here and I was like, okay, cool. I've never there's never talked about anything before. And but a lot of people come out of the woodwork. I've had a lot of LinkedIn people, professional people met up through LinkedIn or my other podcast who, like, yeah, I had something happen. And then you're just kind of blowing me away with all this stuff. Have you had other experiences that you can share or
So there was one other
just
time.
like hold
She's
my
like,
beer?
yeah, she's like, are you done yet?
No.
So
I'm like, let's go.
there was one other, and that it happened here in Vegas probably about 7 years ago, and he's now my fiance, but we had just started. I don't even know why after this experience he even because like the whole time this was happening, I was like, this guy's never gonna go out with me again because he's gonna.
It's
So
gonna
we had
run.
walked from his apartment to or his studio apartment to dinner. And as we were coming back, nothing had happened on the way there, so I had no warning whatsoever that something was about to happen. And as we came back, we were passing this subdivision, and I saw this skeletal hand reaching for me through this great gate. It's like a drain where the water could run out, right? Reaching for me. And I just felt this evil presence. And I knew that it was trying to attach itself to me. And so I was like, we got to go. We got to go right now. And so I started like practically running down the street. And he's like, "What's wrong? What's happened?" I was like, "It's come," because I could feel it. I could feel it coming. And I was like, "We've got to go." And so we were coming up to an intersection and the light is getting, and I knew we had to get across the intersection. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew we had to get through this intersection before the light changed because if we had to stop at that intersection, it was going to catch us. And he was like, "What? What is it?" And he's like looking like I sound like a crazy person. I knew I sounded like a crazy person. But I knew it was coming, and I knew if it attached itself to me, I knew that it was going to use me to do because I'd already had this happen before in my life, right? And so we got there and the light was literally changing, and I was like, "We got to go. We cannot stop. We've got to go." And so we ran through basically the red light traffic was having to stop.
God.
And so, but we got to the other side, and I literally felt it like stop chasing and feel so disappointed that I had gotten away. But every single time I ever had to drive past that, because I never walked on that side of the street again, ever. But every time I would go past there, I would feel it. Like it's just, ugh. And so, yeah.
This should be my new tagline because I say this almost every episode, but if I'm standing there and I see a skeletal hand, a disembodied skeletal hand
Mm.
poking through the thing, I'm shitting my pants right there. I am pooping like bridesmaids in the middle of the street, 100%.
It's, and so we got back to his house and he was like, "What happened?" So I'm telling him what happened. And again, in my mind, I'm going, "This guy's never gonna go out with me again." But he was so supportive and so encouraging. He was like, "It's okay, you're safe, everything's fine. Like, what do you need?" Like he was so supportive about it.
So we've established that you are kind of a path of least resistance for some entities. What do you think makes you um more intuitive than say like myself? And I've talked about this a lot on this podcast that I did ghost hunting for 10 years. I never got like super scared at anything. There's nothing that ever blew me away. We had in both of the teams I worked with, we had sensitives, my friend Evie, and then this other person that I actually based a character in my paranormal mystery books on, and they would sense things eerily close to stuff that they had no idea about, but were close. I never did. I never sensed anything. I felt like I was receptive enough. I was of course skeptical. We were always there to find the truth, but everybody was. Yet nothing ever, I never experienced anything, at least didn't notice it. So what do you think is it about you that makes you more receptive to attracting these spirits?
I don't really know what it is about me, but I have it's something with my aura. I think if I could get a little woo for a minute, I
Yeah.
think it's something with my aura because there have been multiple instances in my life where I have been around people who are, as you say, getting closer to the veil, right? They're coming to the end of their life. And I've been told that I look like an angel, like they see something in my aura that I can't see. I don't see people's auras per se. Now I can see when somebody is like I can be like, "Oh, I don't want to be around that person," right? Like I sense those kind of things,
Yeah.
or I want to lean into that person. But I don't like, I know some people see auras, like they see color around people. I don't see that. But there's something in my aura that people who are close to the veil and who are on the other side of the veil can see. And I think that's what makes me, um, I'm not shut down about it, right? Like I'm very open about it. And I think that's part of it, right? Like I
Yeah.
do believe that there are things that walk among us. I do believe that there are spirits that are trapped here. And it's funny because I worked in a place where for 5 years um we routinely, like daily, had cadavers in the building because we did hands-on training for physicians and veterinarians. So we had
Wow.
all kinds of cadavers. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, tons of fun. And I had somebody come up to me and be like, "I can tell that you sense things." And I don't talk about this a lot. That's like I don't just walk up to people and be like, "Hey, did you know I'm a sensitive?" And I've had ghost experiences, right? Because people think you're crazy. So it's not something that I just talk about. But she just came up to me out of the blue and she was like, "I know that you sense things, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like spirits and go, you sense things. And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Have you ever sent with all the cadavers here, have you ever sensed anything?" And I was like, "No," which supposedly the building did have a ghost of a former employee that had died Kind of unexpectedly, he got injured at work and had to have surgery, and he threw a clot and died. And he had come back and attached it, but I didn't know him, so I never sensed him or anything because he didn't know who I was, right? But I told her, I said, but all the cadavers that are here, they've all died somewhere else. They have
Yeah,
no
yeah,
association with this building. They might have spirits somewhere, but they're not here.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, but
It's very interesting because I actually just wrote down on my notepad before you started talking about this. Has anyone ever recognized your ability in you? Has anybody else other than this person ever, other than the people close to the veil that may have seen things, has anybody ever recognized that you have abilities?
I think my friend that won't go with me antiquing, I had never thought about it before. I think that she did because then she's like, you need to protect yourself with your cellulite. And I'm like, covered,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
that. I think, but other than her, if they have, they haven't like asked about it.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a little element in, I wrote a paranormal mystery. I'm working on the second one right now, and there is a little element of a person in the story has some sensitive abilities. And one of the things that, because my books go through a paranormal and a realistic paranormal investigation, part of that is you get a report at the end of this is what we found. This is what if we believe. We never conclude 100% because you just never know, but we think this and this we probably can explain with this. But we always, and then we did this in real life as well. We would always give a list of here's some things that you can do to mitigate if you have a classic spirit in your house that you don't want there or that is bothersome or whatever. But I added one because there was a person in the book who has some sensitive abilities, and one of the things was, I mean, there's the classic, protective shell and light and grounding, and but I didn't realize that there's this mesh method where you kind of imagine a mesh around you because you don't necessarily want the good energy to be reflected or deflected. So you kind of imagine like a mesh, almost like a screen where the negative, bad energy is not allowed and bounces off, but the good energy is allowed to come in. So, um, but I imagine it would be kind of a dance. You even talked about you talked a little bit about people energy. Do you have a pretty good vibe for living people energy as well?
Most of the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's been a few times where I just met somebody and I'll be like, yeah, they're not who they say they are, and it's turned out right. Like, and so, but I usually have a pretty good vibe.
Yeah.
I pick up on the energy. Like even, um, like when we were watching, Retta's haunted,
Love it. Yes.
yeah, most haunted house in America or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
One of
Love
those
it.
houses, this minute they showed the house on the screen, I had a reaction. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. She can't go in there. She can't go in there. And Wesley was like, this was recorded. Who knows when? This isn't even live. She's already
Yeah.
gone in. Well, I said, well, she's probably dead. Because I could feel like, so sometimes I have a very intense reaction to a place, a thing, a person.
Yeah.
And then that's how I know, like, "Ooh, nope, I'm
Yeah.
not coming near you."
I think vibes with people are probably more common in just the average person because I know I've gotten vibes before and I would say that I'm usually right. Almost I can only think of one time where I got a really bad vibe about somebody. And it after getting to know that person, I thought actually became pretty close friends with that person. So it was a really weird experience because the vibe that I got when I met that person was so visceral and just so like, oh, I cannot stand you. And then really had a complete turnaround. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it actually on this podcast. Her name's Evie, my friend that I talked about that I ghost hunted with. And she said that was probably somebody that I had been involved in a past life with a soul contract. So she talked, I don't know if you've ever heard of soul contracts, but
Mm-mm.
it's this idea that a soul comes to Earth for a lesson. So, or to learn something. And she said you probably had an interaction with this person in another life and it maybe wasn't a good one, but you both learned something. So now you're in a different place and you recognize and you had that reaction because of something that happened, not in this time. but now you're in a different time and you've learned and you've both grown and evolved. So I don't know. Have you ever been wrong? Have you ever had a vibe that was like, nope, wrong?
I mean, I had some, I'm not usually that way, like right where I have an immediate reaction, like I don't want to get to know the person, and then it turned out they were okay. It's usually the other way. I've had several instances with people where I thought that they were good people and they became friends, and then
Mm.
turned out they were just backstabbing hussies, right?
Right.
Oh,
Oh
you
yeah,
mean
I guess I should say we've all had those, haven't we?
right? So, but and probably to be fair about it, if I have that kind of visceral reaction to a person, I usually just stay away from them. So
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know that I've ever given anybody the opportunity to, because I'm very protective of myself and my peeps, and
yeah.
so if you send off that radar like that, like bye,
Bye-bye. Don't let the don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you,
right?
as the saying
Exactly.
goes, right? Well, I am so thrilled again that I could have you on, and I'm so happy that you're able to share these what unexpected tales that I never knew about.
Yeah, I love sharing my crazy stories.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you telling your crazy stories, and they're not crazy. There's something weird
Exactly.
that happened to you here somewhere. Thanks for joining this episode of Something Weird Happened Here. If you have a twisted tale that you witnessed, experienced, or heard from a reliable source, go to bethanecampbell.com/somethingweird to learn more and submit your story. If your tale is twisted enough, we'll share it on air during one of our episodes and might even invite you to be a guest on the show. And we're not picky. Your Something Weird Happened Here could be paranormal, psychic, UFOs, near death experiences, dreams, parallel dimensions, Bigfoot, Chupacabra, or any other weird and unexplained phenomena. We don't discriminate. If you're into paranormal mysteries that are scary, fun, and realistic, pick up a copy of my latest book, The RIP Files: Case of the Demon Drums, the first in a series inspired by real cases that I, Bethany Campbell, worked on when I was a ghost hunter for nearly a decade. Case of the Demon Drums is available on Amazon and most online bookstores. And finally, we would so appreciate it if you would rate and review us on your favorite streaming platform and/or on YouTube. Thanks again, and remember, stay skeptical, but don't run towards the noise.